You gave me a countdown, and your countdown was wrong. Dude, you need to get an actual like red siren. We need like a real one that we can play, like the emergency podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another emergency podcast. The second one, by the way. We only do emergency podcasts when there is a legitimate emergency that you guys need to be made privy to. And sure enough, I feel like this is a topic that is worth discussing. It's something that's been talked about in circles. I want to start off with hearing from my co-host, Glenn Shelton, founder, operator of Hire Heroes, Lead Heroes. Glenn Shelton, is the Medicare business dead? Talk to me.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start with the inception for why we're coming to you live right now talking about this. So I was on a call today. I'm not going to say who with, but it was a person who has done an incredible amount of Medicare business over the past several years. If I were to mention the name or the name of the company that this person is affiliated with, a lot of people would be like, oh, wow, yeah, this person definitely knows what's up in the space. And this was something that they said to me today when I'm on the phone with them. They said, well, yeah, Glenn, the Medicare business is dead. And they tried to kind of walk it back. And I don't know if it was like I don't know if I had like a reaction to it, like once they said this to me. And I also want to give myself kudos for keeping this person genderless so far. Normally, I assign
genderless.
Normally, I assign a gender to the person when I'm trying to like keep them anonymous. You don't know if this is a man or a woman or an alien. Who knows? But this person said verbatim. I'm gonna get canceled on the emergency podcast here today, but they say to me verbatim, Medicare is dead. And they've been in the space for a long time. They've done an incredible amount of business. They have a great company. So, yeah, when I'm hearing this from this individual, I'm thinking maybe it did finally die. Maybe we're witnessing this slow motion car crash of the Medicare business dying. And that's what I texted Christian. As soon as I got off the phone with this person, I'm like, Christian, is the Medicare business dead? Did it die?
So, okay. It's interesting. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. The first thing I want to say is it's interesting to me that a person at that high of a level would go that bold and say something like that. So that to me is something that definitely catches my attention. I will also say this. The Medicare business has been a staple in my family before I was even alive, before I was even born. So my entire life has been littered with fears of the Medicare business not being a thing anymore. When I was a child and my dad was building his agency that we now own, but essentially, he was building his agency and there was always fear. In the 90s, there was a big fear about Hillary care becoming a thing. When Bill Clinton was in office, like that was the big scary thing, at the time.
Right.
And I remember there was a point in time when I was about probably 6 or 7 years old. My dad got his PNC license and spent 6 months trying to sell PNC because he was so scared of it happening. And then he was like, screw this, this sucks, and went back. No shots intended for PNC agents, but
and you wonder why your audience doesn't grow faster.
Facts
I don't know.
Are facts. What does Ben Shapiro say? Facts don't care about your feelings. Anyway,
that's funny.
But so that is anytime I hear something like that, that is what comes to my mind. And I've been hearing things about. I've been hearing whispers about like, oh, the Medicare business. There's two things I hear that come to mind with this. The first one is that the Medicare business is going to go away. I've been hearing that ever since I started a decade ago. The second thing I hear is there's no money in Medicare. I hear that a lot.
That was the one I was told. I didn't hear that the business was dying or dead when I came in. Again, I'm about 10 years old in the insurance years.
Your career is a 10-year-old.
I'm a 10-year-old, which I look at my kids sometimes and I'm like, wow, I am getting old in this space. That was the one that I heard, is there was no money in it.
Yeah.
And I think here's the other thing I wanted to mention really fast too, is we keep using this term death. It's dying. It's going away, right? It's never coming back. Maybe that's not the right way to look at it, but maybe it's going to permanently change in a way that it'll never be what it was.
A higher barrier to entry per se.
Higher barrier to entry. Maybe the compensation changes. Maybe your ability to acquire a client changes. And some of this is speculative, but really what I think this person that I talked to today, I think they were looking at what the final rule that dropped a month ago. And I think they're seeing what, again, I've talked about the writing on the wall. I think they see the final rule this year and they're like, if they tighten this any further, it's going to be to the point where you're not even allowed to sell Medicare almost, you know? I think that was their perspective.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I talked about this on, I think, a podcast we did recently, probably one that hasn't even been released yet, so teaser. But I don't know if you remember talking about this, but we were talking about the pendulum swinging of compliance, right? Like, let's say over here, it's the wild, wild west. You know, it's basically ACA today.
Right.
Over here is ultra strict compliance. Maybe we could even say like the securities world, right?
Yeah.
And my perception is, I made a post the other day in the Facebook group that talked about how, and most agents don't know this. I've come to understand the more I talk to agents, but that the person that's in charge of CMS, the director, has a lot to do with who's in the White House.
Right. Yeah.
Conservative.
Yep.
Democrat, right? So I am really of the opinion, just seeing the trends from being an agent myself, that it's an overreaction to panic of compliance tightening.
I agree.
And I mean, this is not a political statement, you guys, but who you vote for has a lot to do with what the rules are going to be. So if you're in favor of stricter rules, more hoops for you to jump through as an agent, then you'll probably vote for people that are more in favor of tighter regulation. If you're not, you'll probably vote for people that are more towards, I mean, I'm just going to say it. I mean, if you vote for probably a Democrat, you're going to have more tighter rules. If you vote for a Republican, you're going to have less tighter rules, but you'll also have more fraud going on and stuff like that. So there's going to be, like, it is what it is, right? Like, a lot of the stuff we've seen the last 4 or 5 years in the Medicare Advantage space is just downright dirty, but it was much easier to do business for an agent. So you're going to have the polar extremes, and the pendulum's going to swing back and forth. That is my take on it. I really do believe that is very, very accurate to what we're seeing right now. And I think my perception is, and I don't know, I mean, this person you talk to might know something that I don't, and I'm sure there's a very good chance. But my perception of it is, when I came in, we were in an Obama administration still, so we had a little bit tighter rules. We had 48-hour scope of appointment rules. We had, a little bit more regulation. It lightened up dramatically when the White House changed hands. Right. And now the White House changes hands again, tightens up. It's no coincidence. There's a new person leading CMS that's appointed by the president. And so, I really do believe that's a big part of it. Now, will a lot of people run to the next shiny object?
Yes.
Yes.
See,
100%.
That was going to be my next point. Is, so again, I'm a 10-year-old. I'm not an adult yet. I don't know why, but I love saying that I'm a 10-year-old. It's freaking hilarious.
I'm a 9.5-year-old.
Yeah. So when I look at like my experience in the industry, when I came into the industry, it was life insurance was my way in. So everything I saw initially was life insurance, and that was just kind of my lens. That was just kind of my network. But on the health side, once I started to see more on that side, it was almost all ACA at the time. Then all of the ACA commissions got yanked, right? We all remember
Right.
we saw people who had these giant under 65 health books that got completely obliterated. They lost a majority, if not all, of their renewals overnight. So then everyone was like, they yeeted out of that into Medicare. Medicare became the shiny object. So I kind of saw this migration, and it really is almost like birds, the way birds migrate. I saw all these agents and agencies, and I have a unique perspective being that I'm a marketer and I work with all of these different organizations. I work with independent agents, I work with small brick and mortar agencies, I work with call centers, I work with IMOs, FMOs. So I kind of get to kind of see it all from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer I'm in it, the more unique I feel like my perspective has become. But I'm seeing this migrate again. So there was this migration from ACA to Medicare supplement. Then MedSup, as MA became less volatile, I saw the migration from MedSup to Medicare Advantage. Now I'm seeing another migration occur, and the shiny object appears to be ACA again. And maybe it's all cyclical. Maybe it is just one big circle. As I'm talking about it, maybe it's just one big circle where agents are just going to be constantly running to whatever they think the low-hanging fruit is. I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
And to me, this would be my message to agents if that is what we end up seeing. If you are in the Medicare space now and you're doing well now, if a bunch of your competition run away, good. There's more business for you. The people that figure out how to do business compliantly and overcome ultra regulation, they're gonna come out smelling like a flower once their pendulum swings the other way and regulations start to loosen up a little bit. I think ultimately the conversation always needs to be had in terms of the Medicare business dying is we've done podcasts about this into the ground, so I don't want to derail the conversation into this too much, but
Right.
like a one payer health system, that's probably the biggest likelihood of it really going away.
That's the Grim Reaper.
That's the Grim Reaper.
Grim Reaper.
I don't feel
sure.
like there's any other scenario where
Bernie Sanders somehow gets elected in 2024. He immediately drops the one payer system. Medicare is dead overnight. That's the Grim Reaper, but the Grim Reaper is like, that's not even real, right? Like, that's not going to happen.
Like, I've been waiting for him to come into my bedroom for 30 years now. He never shows up. It's like Santa. So Bernie Sanders isn't really.
Bernie Sanders isn't real, just like
he's
Santa.
Not real. He's a fucking AI. No, but lost half the viewership.
There it goes.
But no, I think like if I think that is the ultimate concern, right, for agents. I think there's an AI concern, but I think in the short-term basis, like a 5-10 year basis, it's more so like adapting to utilizing AI in your business. And by not doing that, that's going to be almost like not using social media 10 years ago.
Yeah. So two things I want to talk about. One is the ACA opportunity. Is the migration, if you're a health agent and you're seeing the migration happen and you're seeing the majority start to focus less on Medicare and start to focus more on under 65, is the FOMO real? Are you missing out by not following these agents into the under 65 market? Are you better off avoiding the under 65 market? Because like you said, that's less competition if you stay in Medicare. Let's start with that. I have another thing I want to bring up, but it's not as relevant as that.
That's a really good question. So to me, I feel like most agents, I think the exception goes with new agents, right? If you're watching this and you're brand new, you just got your license, you're a few months in, I'm not talking to you when I say this. Most agents, are going to be better off by doing both together because they go hand in hand together. They're like the peanut butter and jelly. Final expense in Medicare used to be the peanut butter and jelly. Now I feel like it's ACA and Medicare. Not that final expense doesn't have a place, but
Right.
ACA and Medicare, because they're so tightly related together. And you work with their grandkids, you work with the spouse who's under 65, and so I think they make a lot of sense to do together. Now, most agents do both at the same time, but they're going to lean more towards one over the other, right? So like there's an ACA specialized agent and Medicare is their secondary focus, right? They probably do 75 to 85% of their enrollments with their primary focus. We're that way. Our primary focus is Medicare. ACA, we do it, we contract for it. Our production for it is raised every year, but we still do way more Medicare.
Right.
So I think it makes sense to be diversifying. That's what I would say would be the answer. Diversifying so that way you're not missing out. But like for the people that are saying, okay, we're doing 95% of our business Medicare, we're going to drop all that and flip it and do 95% ACA. That to me is an overreaction. I really do believe that.
But I think that's where I think a lot of agents and agencies are taking that mindset on where they got the final rule. They're hearing about the new rules. They're realizing that their existing business practices aren't compliant starting October 1st, whether that's the 48-hour rule, or maybe they've been primarily using direct mail and utilizing age direct mail. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that your business might not be compliant anymore starting October 1st.
Right.
And so a lot of people, I think, they see ACA as this golden goose. I think it's a huge overreaction. I'm in complete agreement with you. And I almost want to tell people that. But again, hey, it's your business. I'm not here to tell you how to run your business. Like, you run your business, I'll run my business. I don't care what you do. Yeah. But I think it is a huge overreaction to be like, I'm going to completely flip my company out of Medicare and into ACA in the next 6 months just because of a couple different compliance changes.
I think if you're always trying to follow chase what everyone else is doing, then I think you're never really like figuring something out from the standpoint that like you're doing things differently than other people are doing. I think really like the truth is if you really want to find like a really, really solid marketing plan or a really solid business plan, you should be trying to do what everyone else is not doing, not trying to do what everybody else is doing, right? Like, because where everybody is running, where the masses are running towards something, it means it's a crowded sector. And what attracts me the most, what excites me about this conversation is a less crowded sector. I'm cool if you get out.
Yeah.
It makes my life easier.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
More business for CBIS. And so that's kind of my opinion on that. I just feel like, imagine if you, okay, let's look at the previous 10 years, right? You're a 10-year-old. I'm a 9.5-year-old. Since that,
I'm older than you.
Yeah, you're older than me by probably 6 months.
I am in real life too, so it makes sense. It makes sense.
Imagine a world in the last 10 years where every time there was a change like this, somebody just completely stopped what they were doing and pivoted in a different direction. Where would they be right now? Well, they'd probably be in mediocrity, chasing the shiny object all around.
It's tough because I've seen people do it successfully and make an incredible, just spit a chip out. Sorry for anybody watching. That was disgusting. I'm trying to eat. This was an emergency. This wasn't scheduled, you guys. I'm in the middle of my work.
It was an emergency podcast.
I just was trying to send a text to Christian. Christian's immediately like, it's time to do a podcast. I'm like, so I'm trying to do it all. But anyways, I've seen people successfully do the pivot. Yeah, I know an ACA call center back in like 2017 who pivoted into Medicare, and they went from mediocrity to making a lot of money. So sometimes I think you can read the weather patterns and then you can shift and you can make more money. But if you're constantly trying to pivot, it's going to be hard to get momentum.
Yes, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think that's very well said. I mean, My message to agents would be, is it such a bad thing to start incorporating a little bit more ACA into what you're doing? Yeah. But don't dump the momentum you already have in the Medicare space. Like if something changes to the Medicare space that's so dramatically, just detrimental. I mean, I would imagine if it happened in the Medicare space, it probably affected the ACA space too. I would imagine. Um, I mean, we've been hearing for some time now that there's regulation coming down the pike for ACA.
Is there going to be scopes of appointment for ACA?
Yeah.
I heard that could happen, right?
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
know.
I don't think anybody knows at this point. I think what everybody can agree on is something's going to change with ACA. There's just too much abuse happening right now, of kind of like the free flowing, wasteland of no rules that there is there.
It's wild.
And so I think when you look at it from that perspective, like now, if you're a brand new agent, my message remains clear. I would say in your first 6 to 12 to 18 months, pick a line, laser focus in it, get really good at it before you worry about trying to juggle.
Okay, so if you're a brand new agent though, and you're aware of what's going on, are you going into Medicare
Or ACA.
or ACA?
I mean, I'm biased. I'm biased through and through. So I'm like the worst person to ask this question to. I mean, I would say if I had to guess which one is more stable, I would say Medicare. Medicare has decades and decades of tried and true.
Yeah.
ACA is even in the last 10 years has been incredibly volatile. It's just recently become more and more and more lucrative. So I would still, put my chips on the table for Medicare. I would double down in Vegas on the Medicare blackjack table than I would it over if I had to if I had to choose one or the other.
Right.
Now that being said, it's not such a bad thing to start with ACA or start with Medicare. Spend your first year cutting your teeth, building a foundation, and then adding the other one later. That's okay. That's fine. That's actually smart. Diversification a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I just can't think of a more recession-proof, stable, just steady Eddie business to be in than the Medicare business. It's wild. Like my entire life, it took care of my family growing up. It paid for my little Christian, his books to go to school was paid for by Medicare supplement renewals. Little Christian wanted a popsicle. It was paid for by Medicare supplement renewals. And now as an adult, my daughter, she wants a sucker. Same thing. Generational suckers are paid for from the Medicare business.
No, from a long-term stability standpoint, Medicare has a better track record. And if you look into the future, and I had to make a guess, and again, to predict the future, it's usually looking at the past. I would still be more bullish on Medicare. I am also probably biased to make this type of call or to even, voice my opinion. Again,
me too.
That's my disclosure for those who are like, oh no, ACA is better all the way around. I hate the shiny object mentality that it seems to almost get worse every year, where one agent or one agency gets really loud about what they're doing or one move. And then you just kind of see like the ducks get in a row behind Mama Duck, and they're all just kind of following them. Again, that's going back to my analogy of a bird migration. And maybe it's a good move for you as an agent or agency owner. Maybe it's not. And you really have to figure that out for yourself. I'm not here to tell you how to run your business, but I do believe the long-term stability of Medicare is still very real. All the compliance that drops, we did a podcast about the compliance specifically, you guys. You're welcome to, I just posted it yesterday for an agent. You're welcome to watch that podcast. You're welcome to read more about that compliance change that happened that for this next AEP, this next enrollment period. There's nothing in it, in my opinion, that is like a kryptonite or like a true killer of Medicare. Is there stuff that you're going to have to change? Yeah, of course, like the 48-hour rule. If you're doing in-person events, there's some rules around in-person events that have changed. But overall, you should totally be fine. The last thing I want to mention while we're still on this topic is um, there's a lot of really jaded agents, specifically
Oh
about
yeah.
compliance. I just dealt with one this morning, and we're talking about the rule changes, and they're all talking about how, well, all these big call centers are going to do whatever they want. They've been doing whatever they want for. Who cares what other people are doing? Like, why are you looking at what other people are doing, and why are you looking at it like, oh man, if Christian gets to break all these rules, I should be able to break all these rules. I understand that you can look at it like it's not fair, but at the same time, like, you've got to do what's right. And if they're most likely, right, if the hammer is going to drop, is the hammer going to drop on you, the small agent who's trying to do everything right, or this other entity that's purposely avoiding doing the rules? And this jaded mindset that I'm hearing from agents, where it's like, I shouldn't have to follow the rules because these other agents aren't following the rules. Like, who cares? Who cares what other agents are doing? I don't get that. I honestly don't get it at all.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely comes with the territory, and I would say, the chickens come home to roast. Or is that what that's saying? Did I totally just ruin that? Did the roosters? Yeah, the roosters come home to
I,
roast.
I don't know. You probably butchered it, but we'll count it.
We'll let it. Yeah, it the free throw still counts, even
Yeah,
the goaltend.
it's good.
So it's essentially like, if someone's out there just completely being disregardful of the rules, they might not get in trouble in that particular instance, but they will eventually. Like, it is what it is. Like, unethical people always get, um, they always get what's coming to them.
Yep.
And so you don't have to, like, I mean, there's definitely an outrage feeling of it. I get it. I understand.
I do too.
But I also have learned over the years that if there's a situation happening with a client, sometimes you don't know the whole story. Sometimes the client is like just absolutely out of their mind. They're having trouble remembering what's going on. You know how many times I've heard from a client that told me, I got signed up for a plan that I didn't know I was being signed up for. Now, does that happen 1 out of 10 times? Probably. But
Right.
if we helped them file allegations against CMS, what happens when you file allegations with CMS? The more allegations they get, the more rules that come out on all of us. Right? So I would say if there's 10 investigations like that, 9 out of 10 of them, they're going to be able to produce a phone call recording, the client's acknowledging everything.
100%.
It is what it is. It's because the client, most of the time, my experience has been, when I've really dug into the meat and potatoes of it, it's because the client is either too embarrassed to tell you the truth. So it's easier to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry,
Right.
little Billy, my agent, little Billy. I didn't mean to leave you. They made me do it." It's almost like, like a guy cheats on his wife. It's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. I tripped and fell and landed on her." Okay, there goes all our audience. But
Yeah, there it goes
there
again.
it goes.
Twice. We lost them twice.
But no, like, I kind of look at it from the same lens. It's either that they're not remembering. Remember, we are dealing with seniors, and memory stuff can be a thing. I've had clients. I did have an allegation once, 7 or 8 months after the sale, because the guy said that we didn't tell him that he had copays or something on his Medicare Advantage plan. Well, absolutely we did. But I'm like, dude, and he didn't even remember my name. Called up and got my name from the carrier, kind of thing. But so that there's that, and there's also sometimes they're just too embarrassed to tell you the truth. Now, once in a blue moon, are they actually being victimized? Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not naive, but
Yeah, it definitely happens.
it's not at the same time going to be a majority of the time, I don't believe.
Well, why not? If you're why not look at it as an opportunity where you can educate this person. Let's say you came across a senior that is being victimized by someone who's being non-compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Why not take the time to educate that prospect and then hopefully get them as your own
Mm-hmm.
and utilize it? It's looking at it like the glass is half full, right? I know what the problem is. I can help this person solve the problem. And now hopefully I can get them as a client. Why not approach it like that? Instead, there's all these agents that are like, oh, you got scammed. Oh, I'm so sorry. Bye. Boom. Oh, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, another horrible agent who scammed this person. We need to make sure all these agents go straight to jail. It's like,
And then the mob.
yeah. And then the mob comes and it's like, listen, I get it. There are people blatantly breaking the rules. And I wish it was an easy fix, but the reality
Yeah.
is it's always going to happen no matter what the rules are, no matter who's in office, no matter what CMS says. So why not just try to, like Christian said, why not come at it from this perspective of like, maybe there was a misunderstanding.
It
Maybe
happens. Like you're
all the
hearing
time.
one side of the story
Yeah.
most of the time. And
why
I'm
are you
not
going straight to Facebook with the one side of the story, right? Like,
I'm not sticking up for all the agents that do unethical things. I'm not saying they're not there. I acknowledge, but like Glenn said, I think if you choose to look at it with rose-colored glasses, if you will probably look at it as an opportunity, because if you are sweet, compassionate, you are just a wonderful, resource for this person, the senior, they become your client, they will never leave you because they know what it's like without you. Think about it like that.
Right.
Like Glenn said, it's an opportunity.
It's a sales opportunity.
I mean, I think a big portion of why we're seeing all these rules coming down the pike on Medicare is because the increase in complaints. How many of those complaints were basically like there's an agent behind them being like, you should complain, you should report this?
Oh, a
Like,
lot for sure.
I just don't think that's doing any good, because like if it was a general, like, let's say like, make a complaint and the agent gets brought in for a trial, like OJ Simpson style, and they're taking months to like investigate everything. Johnny Cochran's like, you must acquit, that kind of stuff.
Love does not fit.
but like if it's something like that, I get it. But
the recording is here. It's lit. You must acquit.
CMS takes these complaints and they try to throw out wide nets to cover them all with these crazy rules. That's where these rules come from. That's what ends up happening. Does it end up stopping anything? No. But it's just something to think about.
Guys, comment below what your thoughts are on, is Medicare dead? Is Medicare dying? Tell us what you think about the ACA opportunity.
Do you agree with what we said?
Yeah. Do you agree with what we said? If you're a health agent, do you think the better opportunities in ACA or Medicare right now? And don't just say that, but tell us why. Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Again, we're trying to have a discussion here. Just like Christian and I had a discussion, we'd love to have a discussion with you guys, right? That's why we do these podcasts. So I have to run. I do have another call I have to jump on. I managed to eat my lunch while we did this. So boom, two for one. Yep, two birds, one stone. Final thoughts, Christian.
Final thoughts for me are I expect an overreaction when there's rule changes like this. I'm staying the course. It's what I've always done. Hasn't screwed me over yet.
Steady Eddie.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think diversification is good, but in few scenarios, maybe jumping total ship is good, but I think diversification is good. That's going to be the name of the game for me.
I couldn't agree more. I think being patient and making changes slowly right now is probably the best thing you could do for your business. If you're an established agency owner, you're losing sleep at night because you see these changes coming down the pike and you're thinking literally Medicare is going to get regulated to death, which again, I'm not saying that it won't. It's very possible that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to see so much regulation around Medicare that it won't make sense to sell it, that there will be so much better opportunities. But as of right now, I totally agree with what Christian said. I think Medicare is still a huge opportunity. There's still so much money to be made. I think you'd be crazy to completely jump ship right now. But diversification is also not a bad thing at all. So,
Yep.
yeah, I love
All right,
it.
guys. Well, it was fun popping in for a quick, unscheduled emergency podcast. If you guys like these emergency podcasts on relevant topics, let us know. And I'm sure we will do more of them as time goes on. So we'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your week and right
Happy
lots of
spelling.
business.